afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you just quiet down so I don't have to do the clapping thing? Okay. We have a special guest coming in that AARP is bringing. And it is required that you have a chair to sit down in. So if you have an empty seat next to you, please raise your hand because people are going to have to sit down. So if you're in the back of the room standing and you're our guest today, please take a seat. There are 2 seats, 1 seat or maybe 2 seats over in this corner. Our guest is here. We want to get started. Is someone sitting in that seat with the bag on it? Okay. Anyone else in the back need a seat? Okay. We had reserved the first row and the second row for our sponsors, AT&T and AARP. So we ask you, if you're not in the sponsorship, to please not sit in the sponsor row if you are not a sponsor. Okay. Does anyone need a chair in the back? Okay. Is someone sitting, my dear? Is someone sitting there? Okay. Anyone else have an empty seat by them, please? You ready? Have to come back here. Okay, we're going to get started in about 3 minutes.
Okay, where are you guys right now?
You ladies are so quiet. We're just waiting for Caroline. You know, Caroline got that big promotion today. So I asked Caroline before we got started. I said, "So, did you know Butch was going to say that? And did you get the money?" So every time we see Butch, between now and the end of the day, every one of you need to ask and say, "Did Caroline get the money to go along with that promotion?" Good. We're just waiting for her to get mic'd up and we'll be on our way. Go ahead. So good afternoon, everyone. Good. I'm Joanne Jenkins, the CEO at AARP. We are the largest membership organization in the world with over 38 million members, and we actually have more African American members than any other African American organization in this country. So, we also happen to be home of the largest magazine circulation in the world, called ATM the Magazine. And when you get the opportunity to turn 50, I hope you'll join AARP. But good afternoon, and welcome to this session on relevance and resiliency. You are in for a treat this afternoon as Clarke, the host of Women of Power TV, sits down for a one-on-one conversation with fashion designer and beauty expert, entrepreneur, mother and wife, and I think she has a couple daughters, Miss Tina Knowles-Lawson. Yeah. Excellent. Great. All of us at AARP are so excited about the opportunity to host this session because we all know as we get older that we all are striving to be relevant and to maintain our resilience and to meet the challenges as we face aging every day. At AARP, we're all about helping people to discover the real possibilities that life has in store for them and empowering them to choose how they want to live as they age. And I'm not just talking about getting older, I'm talking about people at every age. You know, I wrote the book, Disrupt Aging, A Bold New Path for Living Your Best Life. And I often say 50 is not the new 30, and 60 is not the new 40. 50 is 50, and it looks good. Right? If you want to continue to be relevant and resilient as you grow older, we have to work on it every day as we age. We have to challenge that whole mindset around aging and to spark new solutions as we choose the way we want to live. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome these two outstanding women who are going to talk today and every day and help us to realize our own possibilities in our lives. Clarke and Miss Tina Knowles-Lawson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Thank you, all of us. Obviously, we should have stayed in the bigger room. But this is nice because we can be more intimate. And I think Joanne gave you such a gracious introduction, yes, but of course, we all think we know you. And we certainly know where all the beauty and talent originated in your matriarchy. But you know, I think that people see you now sort of fully formed or more fully forming. And the big question here is, where did that all begin and how did you become all that you are? Especially in a way that you could obviously give so much to the young women you raised who are so fully formed as well.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, my parents. I think that's where it starts. Even though my parents were really poor and they weren't educated, they were great parents. You know, they didn't expose us to as much as they could have, but in other ways, they made me confident, and I was really important to my mom. And I think that is the most important thing, that you have to make your kids feel like they're the most important thing in the world. They should be to you anyway. So I think that's part of it. And it's also just learning. I've been through a lot of ups and downs and struggles, and I try not to dwell on those, but to learn the lessons that, you know, God is providing for me, and not to make those mistakes again, and just keep it moving.
Yeah. I know that when you were growing up, very small town, you know, as you said, your parents didn't know a lot to be able to give you that kind of worldview. And with all due respect, the post office was like a big dream, right? Working in a post office. But you had a bigger dream. And I know you had a sister-in-law who presented you with an image that sort of changed your mindset about what was possible.
Yes. She became my sister-in-law, but at 14, she walked into my life. Her name was Lydia, and she got out of a convertible Miata, red Miata, and she had an asymmetrical haircut. And, you know, I was sitting on the porch, and I was like, who is that? And, she, you know, it's almost like when you see the commercials and people walk in slow motion because she has these glasses on. That's how I remembered it. Anyway, and she was just the flyest thing. And she was a bank teller, but she was an artist as well. And she took me to see Alvin Ailey, like maybe 3 weeks after that. And Alvin Ailey changed my life, because I'm from this little tiny town, and it was in Houston, which to me was a big deal. It was 50 miles away. And we went to a nice dinner before, and I didn't know which fork or spoon to use, but I watched everybody, and that was just a great experience, because I saw African American people with nice cars, and not that I had never seen it, but it wasn't very common in Galveston. Professional and articulate, and I was like, God, I want some of that, you know? So it changed my mind, because I had always thought I would want to stay, maybe stay close around, maybe move to Houston, but I was like, it made me want to do more. It made me want to see more. And that's why I know mentoring is like so important, that because you can only go as far as your mind allows you to. So if you've never seen anything else but your neighborhood, and I mentor kids now, and you know, their first day interview, a lot of them said, I said, where do you want to live? And they're like, oh, I'm going to live down the street from my mom's house. You know, I'm going to live in a neighborhood, because they have never seen anything else. And to us, that's not to me, because I know I was one of those kids, but it's so important to mentor children and to expose them to things, because that one thing, like taking them to the museum, I found out that 2 of the girls were artists and they could paint, and I bought them art supplies, and now they're amazing artists. It changed my life. Alvin Ailey. So my first field trip with my girls was to Alvin Ailey. I didn't even have the girls yet, but I bought the ticket. And I took them to a nice dinner, and then we went to Alvin Ailey, and I get choked up about it, because it was so much wonderment. Like, they were so excited, and it was just Alvin Ailey, you know, but it changed their lives too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, I think you talk about mentorship and presenting kids with images, but it's not enough, right? Because it's hard still to create a plan. You may have a dream, but how do you make a plan? So you were always interested in fashion and beauty.
I was always interested. Yeah, my mom was a designer, and she sold a seamstress and a designer, but she didn't know she was a designer. But she was a seamstress, and she sold for a lot of the women there in town. So I was always into fashion. I was always making clothes. I was in a singing group myself. And so the fashion thing was always in my mind, and I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how to. A lot of people, they don't know where to start. I mean, if you're from a little town, you think, oh God, you know, I'm never gonna, you don't see it, so you can't believe it.
Well, and particularly for women, because you tell a story that I really love about how you had gotten married, you had Beyonce, you were home for 5 years, and you didn't work.
That's right.
And you started to really lose your sense of who you are and what you wanted. Can you talk about that and how you then moved forward? Because you really took an affirmative step.
Yes. Well, I had I had Beyonce, and the day that I had Beyonce, that became my priority in life. So I stayed home with her for 5 years because I didn't want anybody to keep her. And I wanted my family to be excited about keeping her, and they could care less because there's so many kids. They were like, your baby's not anything special. She's just another baby. And I was like, I would tell my other sister, she didn't seem excited about keeping Beyonce. And you know, my sister was like, why would I be excited? So I would say, well, she's not going to keep my baby. And she would say, I don't care. So we laugh about that till today. But so I just kept her myself. Right. And so during that time, of course, my husband started, I got pregnant again, and my husband started acting a fool. And I was like, what? I want to leave, but what am I going to do? Because I'm out of touch with the job market, and I don't know what I can do. So I had started beauty school, but just to keep me doing something. But I didn't want to leave her at school. So she would cry, I would go get her. I'd drop out of school. It took me like about 1.5 years to get out of a 9-month course because I kept stopping to keep her. And so finally I got her in a Catholic school that I liked and I felt comfortable with, and I finished. But he started acting really crazy when I was pregnant. So I mean, you can lose yourself. I stopped hanging out with my friends. I stopped traveling. I stopped reading as much because when you have a kid, you know, that's your life.
Right.
And I lost myself. And so I went and finished beauty school, and I opened my hair salon, and it changed my life. But it's funny because that has happened to me again and again in my life, that I should have learned the lesson from that. But I went back and got so involved in everything else in my life and taking care of everybody else that I lost myself again. I've done it like 3 times. And, you know, you just keep making that same mistake. But it's just really important to not lose yourself, to stay in touch with your friends that make you laugh. You know, do whatever you love doing, take care of yourself, and not worry about taking care of the world.
So, you know, one of the things we've been talking about here this week is this idea that women are warriors, right? Not just in Wakanda, but in this room and in real life. And I know that one of the things you have always been very open about is the fact that you have always had to fight. Life may look easy
Absolutely.
now on Instagram, but you've always had to fight. Can you talk about the battles that have been most significant for you and how they changed you?
Right. Well, the first battle was, and I'm going to try to make this the short story, but I had a really interesting childhood because my parents were poor. But we went to a private school, which was very confusing for me because I'm like, if we're so poor, why are we going to a private school? And the kids that were there during the time, you got to think that this was like, I was born in 1954. So there were not a lot of black professionals in my town, but the ones that were, all of their kids were there. So we went to that school, and I couldn't understand the nuns picked on us so bad, especially me. And they used to always say, we're going to break that spirit in you. And, you know, if you only knew, you don't even deserve to be here. And I never knew why, but what I found out as an adult is that my parents bartered for me to go there. So that's why my mom was like an indentured servant, because she was always sewing for them. She made all the altar clothes. She would do alterations. She would come to the school, and my brothers fill the milk things, and they treated us like stepchildren. Right. But they used to always tell me, I'm going to break your spirit, and you're selfish, and all this crazy stuff, and I'm like 5 or 6 years old. And I decided, no, you're not. Right. And yeah. And my mom was really passive, and now I understand why, because if she would have raised too much fuss, they probably would have kicked us out.
Right.
And so I had to protect myself because she didn't protect me. And, you know, I'm 64 years old, but I get emotional talking about it because they did some really bad things to, you know, make my self-esteem low. But I fought them all the time. So I became a warrior at 5. I always say that. And that's how it started. So, you know, I'm so easygoing and I'm a nice person, but if you mess with my kids, I become a beast. You know, and I will defend myself if I feel. So I've had to do it over and over and over, especially in the entertainment business, because, you know, I was terrified when my kids got in that business because I was always worried about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know?
Right.
And so I've had to be a warrior with them. No, you will not come in here and smoke weed. No, you will not be cursing in the front of my kids. You will not sexualize them because they were looking grown and they were only like 15, 16.
Right.
But it's just been I just think in my life, that's my thing in life is that I've always got to fight for something. But I thank the nuns, because if I wouldn't have learned how to fight when I was 5, I wouldn't be able to fight like I'm fighting now.
Yeah. When you say you worried about your daughters, you know, I think one of the things that's been extraordinary about you, I'm adopted. So, you know, I know that when you talk about your daughters, we're thinking you have 2, but you're not thinking you have 2. You're thinking 3 with Kelly, and then there are many other girls who you've informally adopted and really you've raised a village. Why have you expanded the frame so much with these young women in particular? And what is the thing that you most want them to take away from you?
You mean my mentees?
Your daughters,
my
your
daughters.
large, large group of daughters.
Well, I love girls. I love helping them grow and, you know, every aspect of it. But with my girls, I just enjoyed them so much. And, you know, Kelly was 10 and her mom was a nanny. And so she couldn't really get her to practice, and they were living with the family. And so she came to stay a summer with us, and she wound up leaving at 21. I had to kind of kick her out. I'm like, girl, it's time for you to get your own house. Your sisters are gone. But they were gone and she was still there. But, you know, I just love girls, and I love helping them grow and have higher self-esteem, because I think girls have a hard time. They really do, you know, with all of the things that they have to deal with.
They clearly really revere you, though. You know, it comes through in their work, in their posts, etc. And, you know, the mother-daughter thing, it can be dicey at all different ages. So I'm just wondering, how did you navigate those times when they were not doing what you wanted and you knew that the consequences could be real, right? And then how do you model for them with consistency in a world where there's so much else coming at them?
Well, I think you know, my kids always say, my mama just didn't talk the talk, she walked the walk.
Yeah.
I think you have to set the example, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. You can't say, well, you don't go, you know, stay out all night, or you don't go get drunk and fall down and do crazy stuff, you know, and then you do it. So I think the do as I do and not as I say is the way it goes. So I think I try to set the example for them. I listen to them, because it's really important to listen and not judge your kids. And that was the hardest thing for me, because sometimes I wanted to judge and sometimes I did, but most of the time I just listened to them, and I tried to be not their girlfriend, because I don't believe in that. I'm still
That's what I was
mother.
going to ask you. How do you walk that girlfriend? Did you try to walk that girlfriend
no.
mama line? No. You were just like, I'm not your girlfriend.
No, I'm not your girlfriend.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll listen to you. You can talk to me about anything. I'm going to not judge you. But I am not going out drinking and partying with you, because I don't want you to think that when it's time for me to snatch you up, then I want to be able to do that. And yeah, it's true, because you can't have it both ways.
Still? Can they still get snatched?
Oh, I wouldn't snatch them up now. They they're
only
grown.
in your mind.
But I have. I mean, I never had to spank I mean, this sounds crazy, but I didn't spank them. I didn't, I wasn't crazy with them, but a couple of times I did have to jack them up, because they get a little crazy. You know how teenagers are.
Let's go through some quick words. I'm going to
Okay.
say some words, and you give me back whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
And these are things that I think people think of when they think of you. It epitomizes you to some degree. Beauty.
Beauty, I see beauty everywhere. I think beauty is everywhere. You just have to look for it. You know, I play this game when I'm at the airport. And when people walk by, I look at them and I find that beautiful thing on them. And it's really fun. You should try it. And it might be something like their hands or but it's so much beauty in the world, and things, places, and people. And if you just look for it, you'll find it. That's what I feel.
Your own beauty. A woman's
own?
beauty.
Yeah.
How women think about beauty and owning their own. Because you are considered a beauty expert and long have. You made a career of it. You were a businesswoman. People would come to you. You know, women, we struggle so much with our self-image. Did you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, things, nobody is really happy with themselves when they're younger. And that's why you grow up and you find out that you're not just about how you look on the outside, you know. But yeah, I had my struggles too, you know, and insecurities, and I still have them, you know. It's just real.
Feminism.
Feminism, you know, it's interesting because feminism means equality, equal pay, and having control of your body and all those things. And that's really important. And I believe that in the past history, if you didn't look a certain way, if you didn't dress a certain way, then you weren't considered a feminist. You know, if you didn't look like Gloria Steinem, then you weren't a feminist. And I have actually had people to write that Beyonce is not a feminist because she dresses sexy or whatever. But feminism is about owning your own power, owning your own body, being strong, and just believing that you're equal and you're enough. You're not less than. And I think that's what feminism is.
Wealth.
Wealth.
You've lived all sides of this equation. So what does wealth mean to you?
I think wealth means, you know, in the financial aspect of it, it means security. But I've had so much wealth, whether I've been poor or, you know, had money or didn't have money. I think wealth is like how rich your life is. That's true for me.
Loss. You've had a lot of it.
Loss. I think loss is a part of life. You know, we all lose people, we all lose things, you lose. That's just a part of life, and you can either stay stuck on it or you can move through it. You know, that's why it's called going through it, because you will get through to the other side. So you lose something, and I think you gain something in that loss, depending on how you handle the loss.
What's the hardest loss you've ever had?
Definitely losing my brother. Yeah, people. That's the biggest loss to me. The material stuff, I've lost a lot of that, and I always recover from that. But people, really tough.
Hard. Marriage.
Marriage. I mean, I love marriage. I love the. You know, I love to be married. I think of teamwork when I think of marriage, though. You got to have two people that's in it, and you can't do it by yourself. But it's a great thing.
What did you learn the first time that has been a game changer for this time?
I think I like myself more. You know, when I got in my 50s, I started thinking about a lot of things, and how much I gave out and how I wasn't getting enough in, and how I needed to get rid of some people in my life that weren't good for me. And, you know, so, yeah, that would be it.
Aging.
Aging.
When you said you were born in what year?
1954.
I could hear y'all doing the math. You're like, wait a second. Take away the 6, carry the 1. Yeah. 64 years beautiful. It is awesome. Does it bother you? Does it, how does
What,
it?
being 64?
No, just the whole aging process. Were there years where it was more difficult? Years where it suddenly became wonderful?
It became wonderful. I mean, at 58, I literally started over my life. And I moved to a new city. I got me a new man. I got me a new car, a new house. And everything was brand new. And it was like, I'm having the time of my life at 64.
You said you got you a new car?
I got me a new car.
What kind of car?
I got a Porsche.
Oh, okay.
And
what color is the Porsche?
It's gray.
Oh.
No convertible Porsche. But you know what's funny? I've been saying I was going to get a Porsche since I was in my 30s. And then I got to be 40 and I didn't have a Porsche. And then I got to be 40 and 50. So for my 60th birthday, my daughter called me and she was like, "You go and get a Porsche. Because you're going to be 70 still talking about you want a Porsche." So I got this Porsche and I moved to LA, which is the first place I ever lived when I left home. And I always wanted to come back there. And I moved back at 59 and I got a new man and I had my new car and my new house so I started my life over. And even me doing some of the things that I do now, I would never have done them because I spent my life hiding. And when I say that, it's like my life was my kids. So I never wanted to do anything to embarrass them, and I never wanted to do anything to disappoint them. And I kept saying, it's not about me, but now it's about me. And I embarrass them all the time. I do.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I look at your Instagram. My daughter is 23. And when I tell you that she is a Miss Tina fiend, this child lives on her Instagram. If I did the things on Instagram that you do on Instagram, she would disown me and call AT&T and say shut off her phone.
Oh, they've tried.
But you do them, and she's like, "Oh, Miss Tina, she's everything." I'm like, okay.
Well, my kids are the same way because they're calling me saying, "Mama, you went way too far. You misspelled some words. You got an actor's last name wrong," because I just mix them all up. And I'm like, I'm 64 and I'm a grandma and I'm on Instagram. I'm supposed to make mistakes. That's my excuse. But they don't like it. And sometimes they'll call me and they're like, "Solange has been trying to get my password forever." I was like, So, yeah, she got an award at Harvard Saturday, and they asked her about me and the Instagram. Yeah. And she said, "I've been trying to get my mama's password because she always messing up." And I told her one day she going to mess up so bad that, people are going to turn on her. And so she's like, I just can't stand her on there. But people come up and say, "Your mama really inspired me to start exercising and doing this stuff." So she's like, "I guess I'll let her slide, but she got to stay off the shade room." And I'm like, "I don't even know what the shade room is." She's like, "Well, they quote you every 2 or 3 days."
They do. Well, this session is called Relevance and Resiliency. And, the Instagram piece is really part of what inspired us to call that this. Because Instagram is, it's not really the stomping ground of the 64-year-old set. But you are fearless there. And it has resonated with all generations of people. So I'm curious as to what you love about it, because you clearly do. And how do you manage how much of your story to tell? Because you do. You put your family on there doing the electric slide. Everybody was like, "Me too."
And then I took it right off because they called me and said, "If you don't take that down."
But,
And then they put me on the shade room because I took it down.
But when you have such a public family, how do you manage? Because I think all of us, whether you're a celebrity or not, this is part of it, particularly with social media. Yeah. How do you manage telling your story and what you put out there and what you keep?
Right. Well, I've learned a lot because, like she said, I screw up, sometimes and I go too far. But part of what I love about Instagram is that I reach so many people that say it's a way to reach people. I put prayers on there. I put positive things on there. And I think what became important to me is because everybody, including my kids, said, Mama, they're going to tear you up on Instagram. And it's going to be negative. And people said that you can't have it without people being negative. But I have very few negative comments because I stay positive. Even when I'm tempted to comment on something, if it's not positive, then I don't do it because I want to prove to people that you don't have to use social media for ugliness. You know, use it for the good. And, you know, I love that you can block and delete. Because I wish I could do that in life. You know? But I use the platform, and when there's, you know, somebody shot and killed unjustly or our kids being killed, I put that on there too. And, you know, and I don't get a lot of negativity because I don't put out the negativity. Yeah, so I love it. I mean, it's for women to come up to me and say, like she said, I started exercising again because I saw you exercising, or you know, I see you going places, and you know, it inspires them. Or you got a new man, and you know, I want to get a new man too, but I thought it was over for me. And I see you having fun, so it's great. And that's why I love AARP, because it's about being good with being 64, not trying to be 30. You know, I try to be appropriate for my age. Now, does that mean I got to have a dress on up to here? I don't think so. No. But I try to conduct myself classy and in a way that is an example, and I think it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I wouldn't have ever thought it, and how I got on it is my husband was doing a TV show, and we were in Detroit for a month. And I was on the set, and I was so bored. And everybody was over there just doing stuff on their phones when they had breaks. And so these girls actually got my phone and got my husband's email address and they were like, we putting you on Instagram. I was like, I'm not doing that. And then I took a picture, and I think I got hooked. I took a picture with Debbie Morgan, and it was just all these good comments because she's my age, and they were saying, y'all look good, and I was like, oh, this is all right. This is good for my self-esteem.
Well, you got hooked, and 1.5 million followers got hooked so far, too. Yeah. You know, it's a common question, and Star asked this of Susan Rice, Ambassador Rice, in the last session. I'm going to ask it a few ways because this is a longer journey, but what do you know now that you wish you had known when you were 21? What would you tell your 21-year-old self?
21? I was having the time of my life at 21. I probably would tell myself to enjoy my parents more because I lost them like at 26. And, you know, that I probably, but other than that, all the, you know, I guess I was living my life. You know, I was a beach bum. I was having a good time. So not so much at 21.
What would you tell your 41-year-old self? What do you wish she had known?
Yeah. I wish in my 40s I knew, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that some people that are in your life don't deserve to be there. And I think I would have been more selective about who you know, like it's in the Bible that you don't cast your pearls to the swine. I mean, it's friends, it's relatives that I felt like I had to take care of because you know, I was a little more fortunate than them, and, you know, just taking on everybody's stuff and not spending time loving and nurturing myself. Yeah, so I wish I could go back at 41 because, you know, I would have taken better care of myself when I was younger.
We honored 4 women the other night, including Carmen de Lavalade. So you mentioned Alvin Ailey, and she was a mentor to him. She turned 87 while she was here.
That's so cool.
And she got up there and told us that she's still discovering who she is at 87.
Really?
So what are you still discovering? What are you still discovering about yourself at 64? Who are you still growing into being?
I think I'm freer. I know I'm freer. And I'm not so, I could really care less what other people think. And that's the best part of what's going on with me right now, because I was always worried about making mistakes and people taking it out on my kids. And my kids are grown now, they're on their own. And I'm like, look, I'm going to live like I want to live. But I feel free. I feel free to be funny and not be so serious and not so quiet and reserved, and you know, and just to laugh more. And I love it. I'm way better now than I was when I was younger, you know.
Well, I think that we would all have to agree. Right? Please give her a round. Okay, so will Joanne Jenkins please come back? Now here's where I'm going to have to ask all you warrior women of power to please stand down. As difficult as I know that is, Miss Tina has a plane to catch, and I mean like yesterday. So that is why we're ending so abruptly, and she has been so gracious to give us as much of her time as she possibly could. We have to get her out of this room and out of this building like lickety split. She doesn't have time for pictures and all those things as much as she would love to do that. So Joanne Jenkins is going to close us down, and you are going to give Miss Tina a huge round of applause as she exits. Thank you, Joanne.
Let's give them a rousing round of applause for Miss Tina and Caroline, who's done such a terrific job. Thank you all for being a part of this session this afternoon. I think one of the things that Tina has said to us is that you need to be living your best life every day. And at 64, if we can all look like Tina Knowles, then we'll be in great shape. So we want to thank you all for coming to participate. I hope that you will continue to enjoy the festivities here and the programs with the Black Enterprise Magazine Women of Power Summit. And thank you all for coming this afternoon.